um, Vicki Noble is part of this Yogini and Dakini in conversation with project that is a project to meet women all around the world who are researching, working and with the Yogini or Dakini. So before focusing on our Dakini topics, I say I introduce you, and you are an American feminist, a shamanic healer. You are author, scholar, and also wisdom teacher. And you have written many books. Among these, Shakti Woman is one of the most famous book, and also it has been translated in many languages, and also in Italian is like is very sure that many generations of women in Italy and all around the world has read. And you also created with the Aaron Vogel, the Mother Crystal again as again instruments, a tarot who is helping women around the world to be connected with themselves and outside. And you created the ritual, the 5 Dakini ritual. That is the 5 Dakini mandala is one of your most important workshops that you teach all over the world and since many years in Italy. So in this presentation, I add my personal presentation that I met you since so long, that I met you first in 2006. And I used to say in my life, there is in my life before Vicki and after Vicki, as you are like a turning point in my life. So, and I'm very happy to consider you my teacher, but also my best friend. And I say really a Yogini and Dakini who helps me really to develop and to discover the deep work inside me. So, I mean, all these things, it's really important. And I think other many connections, that inner private connection that I have with you. So this is, so I was one of the students that met 2006 and 2007 in Italy, and I was initiated from you to tarot, to read the tarot. So my first experience with you was to practice for 1 year and 1 day the Mother Crystal tarot, and the Black Dakini, and that was a very important moment for me. That then realized that I had already met the Yogini in India, but it was just with you that this connection became very precious in my life. So this is my personal story with you. So this is for this reason. I mean, I'm very happy and very excited to have you in this project. So one of the question that I would like to speak with you is why Dakini, why and when Dakini came in your personal life?
Okay, that goes way back to even before I was introduced to Tibetan Buddhism. The Dakini is a form of goddess in Tibetan Buddhism, and she's very important, very central to that tradition. But I met her before that, and I feel she plucked me, and I belong to her immediately and ever since. The Dakini is a woman who flies through space. a female deity who also takes form as a human woman. Not all women are Dakinis, but the tradition says any woman could be a Dakini. And so that's supposed to make all the Tibetan Buddhist practitioners be very aware and very honoring of women, since at any moment a woman could be a Dakini and you could be in her presence and not even know it. And part of the tradition is that the Dakini is hardly ever recognized. There are wonderful, funny stories about the great yogis, the great male yoga practitioners and gurus who belonged to the monasteries in Tibet in the historic period. And the Dakini would appear in front of them. Each story's different a little bit, but the main gist of each story is that if the yogi doesn't recognize her, he loses his opportunity for this lifetime. And if he does recognize her, then almost always she leads him out of the monastery and into a kind of a life of spiritual freedom, and in a very female-centered way. So from the beginning, the first stories or the first folklore that I heard about the Dakini made it very interesting, because I already identified myself as a supernatural woman who lived outside of society in some sense, you know, a radical politically, but also a radical woman spiritually. And then in the old European tradition, with the archaeology that Maria Gimbutas brought to life in the 70s, we saw that all over the world there are images, old images throughout time, of women flying or women with wings, or in some way bird women, some hybrid form of women who fly through space. And I made that a central piece of my teaching on female shamanism, because I think the metaphor or the archetype of it has to do with the female ability, the biological menstrual mystery of women being psychically capable, having a capacity to go in and out of form, to go in and out of our bodies, to move our energies into the world and back into the body and so on. That kind of versatility or mobility of the female energy is considered very primary, very central to the Dakini tradition and to the tradition of female shamanism everywhere. And so even at the age of 30, I already had a strong identification with that archetype. And then I entered a Tibetan Buddhist establishment and became introduced to the whole tradition, which I felt also a kinship with, you know, and I felt at home in a certain way, intellectually and spiritually in that tradition. But I never felt that I could find a home for myself in the communities of Tibetan Buddhist practitioners because of my radical feminism. I think the two go perfectly together. They go perfectly together in me, and I put the two together in my particular adaptation of the Dakini practices for the women that I teach. But in general, in the world, the two don't meet. Feminism doesn't generally appreciate Buddhism that much, or Tibetan Buddhism in particular, and the Tibetan Buddhists don't particularly appreciate feminism and feminist women. So there's a little bit of a tension there. And what I learned and felt after, it was the year 2000 that I began my Dakini practices in earnest. And so by that time, I was introduced in 1980 to Tibetan Buddhism. So it had already been 20 years of my own adaptation and my own taking the teachings from different lamas and so on, It was first from Sultra Malioni that I learned the Dakini Mandala practice in 1995. But I didn't really use the practices. I loved them and I appreciated the retreats. But I didn't use the practices in earnest until 2000 when I went to the mountains on retreat for 5 years. And I was in need of healing. And I was in a kind of a spiritual crisis about the state of the world and the climate collapse and, just all the things that I had worried about as an activist for so many years. And I began to use the practices in a desperate need for contact and guidance. And they worked. They were tremendously helpful, those Dakini practices. Every day I practiced, and I created a collage form for my own practice where I made a collage in the structure of the 5 Dakini mandala. So that it was all kind of an accident, a stumbling toward my own adaptation of the Dakini that was so strong in my life by then. But so few feminist women were going into Buddhist institutions and learning the practices in Tibetan and practicing with so much diligence. Those who practice Tibetan Buddhism with Sultra Malioni or with any of the lamas who teach the Dakini practices, they're very serious practitioners of Buddhism. And they practice in Tibetan and they practice for hours a day. And it's a beautiful thing. But my students aren't particularly in that demographic. My students are householders. Many are mothers. They're married. They have, if they don't have families, they have other obligations. They're in the world, and they're feminist women, and they love the goddess. And so I wanted to make some sort of a synthesis that would really work, because women in women's spirituality need a method. Sometimes our circles are a little loose, a little sloppy. At least for me, they felt a little undisciplined. And I felt that the focus that I learned in doing practices was very important. So that was a lot of my motivation in the beginning for putting together my own version or my own adaptation of the Dakini practices. My practice, as you know, is very simple. It can take 10 minutes. You can do a 10-minute practice a day, and you can be very grounded in a certain quality of healing and protection and practicality and real life spirituality being brought into real life. So that was my goal, and that's what I brought to Italy when you and I met.
Yes.
And
yes. And so many years.
Say that again?
Yes, you say?
No, I didn't hear.
Now it's so many years. I think almost 30 or 14 years that you have met really hundreds of women around, because your workshop in Italy are always full of people, women, and it's really beautiful moments that we share. When you come in Italy, it's like, wow, a big celebration, no? From north to south. Women are just traveling to meet each other, and each workshop we are at least 30 up to 50. Some once we were 55, and there is always a very beautiful energy. And for 2-3 days, it's like we are really in another world. Now, myself, I experienced this for the first time. That really you forget everything for 2-3 days and be with women and practice and research and learning, and dancing and singing, and it's a magical time. And myself experience how be with you in a workshop in 2-3 days. I could survive for 1 year without meeting you. Because the energy was so much, and also you understand there is much to do about reading and working, and also involving other women to be part of this. So it's really so the community in Italy now it's really big, and I think it's not only in Italy, but here in Italy it's we're very strong, no?
There's some special connection for me with the women in Italy. It was a total surprise for me. My book was Shakti Woman was published in Italy in the 90s. And then The Double Goddess was published in Italian in 2004. I came with Mary Daly, and her book Quintessence had been also translated and published. And that was the beginning. And the women I met, part of the Dakini tradition is just the way it was for you and me when we met. Dakinis recognize one another. Yoginis, it's in the Yogini tradition that Miranda Shaw wrote about in her beautiful book, Passionate in Life. I identified so much with her definition and her descriptions of the Dakinis as wild women who are on their own path, doing their own thing, doing their own practice and teaching, but always having followers, and then coming together to share teachings, to exchange teachings, precious teachings, and then moving on and doing our own work again, and coming back to again and again. And I recognize that in you and me, and I recognize it in all of my organizers in Italy. It was fate, and we found each other, and we made the experiment of trying out having a workshop on the Dakini in Italy, and it was astonishing. It filled so fast from word of mouth, and there was a waiting list every year for the first year. It was amazing. And I finally decided there's something very, very special in my karmic connection, my karmic link to Italy that I never knew before that happened. And I felt and have said in some of our sessions that it's very funny to me because there we are, sometimes in Rome even, but all over the country, there we are having these supernatural, magical yogini circles and practicing together with such joy. And we're doing it all under the Pope's nose. The home of Who would have thought, It's very odd and very funny. It's like the Dakinis are laughing.
Yes, of course. And this is also the way the Yogini works, also in a temple, because each one shows their own power, but they are always in group. They are always very they cannot be but in group to really work in the community, to really work for the society. And before I had yes, this is how the story started in Italy. I want to show because this is one of the first in a very famous newspaper, Io Donna, who came with the La Repubblica, who is a very famous newspaper in Italy, and so there was published the story of you and the tarots. Yes. So this is for me very precious because I read this article, and then I went to the library to buy Shakti Woman, and then just not 1 year later, you were there in front of me in flesh and bone, really. It was like, because sometimes of some authors that you are okay, maybe somewhere in the world, but it was very special because it was really a starting point and a turning point of my life, that no way back for me after I've met the Dakini and the Mother Pistarot. Because also from there, also my personal stories start with the Yogini and with the Yogini Savira Oracle. So it was really a important starting point. So, and I just but nowadays, after this almost 14 years of teaching in Italy, what is the feedback of the women? I think that when you are back in America, there is a large group of women thinking about you and want you to come back very soon. because you leave many hundreds of women practicing alone in Italy, waiting for the next meeting, and
and not just practicing alone, but the phenomenon for me, for about women in Italy, has been that they practice together, actually, when I'm not there, and that they're serious practitioners and they want more the next time I come. And that's what makes a good teacher. Your students are asking you, please make a teaching for us. Please take us further, take us deeper. And that I've taught a lot, not so, I've taught enough in the United States and in other countries on the Dakinis, but only now and then, here and there. In Italy, it became something that I had never experienced in terms of the Dakini teachings. They took root in some very special way, and the women are so sincere and devoted in their practices that they actually get together when I'm not there and practice. And that is living proof of the practice efficacy. It's wonderful and thrilling for me. And it makes me want to go deeper in my own practice in order to be able to guide in a way that takes us all deeper. So I'm very appreciative of that following.
Yes, and I'm very happy as I'm an Italian woman living in India. I'm very happy to belong to Italy, so to meet you. But there is something in particular that comes often when you meet again the women in Italy who are practicing. What is the among these practitioners, what is the most important thing? What is the most important feedback that you receive? Because there are women who are practicing since many years now. There is something special that you notice among these women that you are practicing the Dakini for many years?
Well, one of the things I notice has to do with the focus that I was talking about before, and which I thought was somewhat missing from the early women's spirituality work, the early circles, that there wasn't an ability to focus deeply and to focus for a long time. The Italian women have taught me that through the years and through our continued contact, it's more or less like a sangha in Tibetan Buddhism. Not quite, because I don't speak the language, so that's a limitation. And I only come to Italy once or twice a year, which is also a limitation. So it's not really a sangha in an orthodox sense, but it's enough of a loving community of practitioners, of dakinis, that it has been very impressive for me. And the feedback is in the development that I experience in the women's circles. The work goes deeper and deeper. The women own it and claim it as their own, they develop. You develop. There's a kind, one of the things I really push for in my work is that women will learn the practice, this simple practice that I've adapted for my goddess women, that they'll learn the practice, that they will practice daily for a year and a day, that they will anchor the practice in their lives. And then I give them permission, as you know, to do what they want with the practice, to make it their own, and to make it a creative practice, artistic. And you were one of the first women who did that in such a very essential way when you made the beautiful mudras for the Dakini practice. And then all the women wanted to learn the mudras, There's just so much focus. And now when I go and I teach, even when I'm teaching more intellectually, and we're not necessarily learning a new practice or something, but really going deeper into the prehistory and some of the theoretical and paradigmatic parts of my teaching, the women are absolutely focused. They absolutely are able to focus intently and are eager to learn the deeper tenets of the practice and what it means and how it can be used and so on. And that's so nourishing for a teacher. That's the most important feedback, is the practice and development, and then the ownership of the practices and the expression, the way that Barbara Zanoni, another of my organizers, dances the practices, and the way that Sandra Capri has taken the practices into the tarot, even, and into dance, into movement. It's just beautiful, the way that Morena's groups, Morena Luciani in Torino, the way that her groups have adapted the practices to their own shamanic work, and it's so potent, it's so powerful how they use the drums and how they take the work, and anchor it in their own land, in the forest, and in the place. That's so important, anchoring the practice in the body and in the land, in the place. One of the things about the practice, and the reason that I developed it, is not something that the Tibetans would say about the practice, I don't think. But for me, it's a very explicitly feminist practice, because you put yourself, the practitioner, you put yourself in the center of your own mandala, and you honor and delineate the four directions around you. So you make a tent of dakinis around you, and these dakinis move through the world with you vibrationally. And that process, or that practice of a woman putting herself in the center, that's a feminist practice, because we women in the West are universally socialized to be sort of a pep squad, a cheerleader, someone on the periphery of someone else's mandala, the husband, the father, the children, the family. All of it can be a beautiful part of a woman's life, but it's not the center. A woman has her own center, just like a man. And for us to be able to come and practice that centering and that anchoring into our own standpoint and our own point of view, that is so precious for a feminist woman, because it takes it to a different level. It's not intellectual. You're not just a feminist in your mind, but you actually have the capacity through practice to stand your ground, to stand up for your beliefs, to honor yourself and protect yourself and your children and what you love from danger and from predators and so on. It's so important. It's like a self-defense course. Even though it's beautiful, it moves us, the practice moves us when we do it together. It's so beautiful. It conjures such beautiful imagery and, it's all that. It's gentle, beautiful, but it's also really strong. It's what we call kick-ass in America, It's we stand our ground. We stand in our power.
I can say that really. I mean, I experience myself how this mandala of the Dakini really brings really helps to go inside and bring from inside really something powerful that maybe you didn't know you have. You didn't know that you can do something, and this happened to me when I didn't know really that I could drawing and recreate the temple and create the Yogini's oracle, and
Yes.
I know very well that without all this process, I could not do this. So I understand very well what we are saying, because it was really what I experienced. And yes, I know also my Dakini's friends in Italy, and that Barbara, Sandra, Morena, many others who are experiencing their own life also. So it's great. So that we can say only thank you, Vicki, to help so many women really to be strong, to be grounded, to show themselves. Also because even if we have some kind of we don't, without this Dakini grounding, it's very we feel very weak and we hesitate to show ourselves. So I mean, we are not so strong. So really the Dakini is they are very big helper to push us in the society, and also to help other women, and also to push the story to also to have to make more space in the society for women, and to be stronger and stronger, and so
yes,
this is what is happening.
Yes, so, I think it's our particular spiritual, if you will, way to help in the fight to stop violence against women. There are many ways to go about that, and being a warrior is one of them. I admire the warriors a great deal who go in the streets and who really fight to stop violence against women. But I do feel an activist in myself and in the practice and in our work together. I feel it's a kind of magical activism.
Thank you for this, for me, and also for this is that all the women in Italy and the world. Would like to express this thank you to you in this moment. So I will say from behalf of all these women. So we will end this conversation going to one of the most important artwork that you created with Karen Bokel, and this is also another big helper for the women, along with the 5 Dakini, because the two art comes together. We cannot do the mandala of the 5 Dakini without at the end to pick up a card of mother piece. So I mean, this is another way to ground it, to become strong in life. Again, another. We should do another interview just focusing on mother piece, because.
Well, yes, I've said, that the mother piece is a treasure in the classic treasure tradition, the Terma tradition in Tibetan Buddhism. I didn't know that. Karen didn't know that at the time that we were making the cards, but later it has become obvious that all of the conditions for a terma to be found and expressed into real life, all those conditions were met in our fateful coming together and the incredible seamless collaboration that we made, and in which we were able to make the mother piece. And now I'm able to show it, to a Lama friend of mine who years ago said, yes, that's a treasure. And I feel it as that. And, the treasure tradition is very honoring of maverick teachers who receive the Dakini's whispers in our ears, and who receive this coded message, and then the Terma finders incarnate into that particular incarnation with the purpose of bringing through a terma, bringing through a treasure in the vernacular of the particular time and place, and for a constituency that is very particular to the terma finder. And of course, that's what I've been doing my whole life, is trying to adapt these practices. First, the tarot, that was so Western and so white and so male, to adapt that to women's use, and now to adapt the wonderful ancient Dakini practices to a contemporary constituency of deeply spiritual feminist women. And so I feel thrilled to be a part of that tradition. And I think mother peace, is prajna paramita, that we have this lineage. We have the lineage of the East, the Tibetan. We have the lineage of the West, the old European and the goddess civilizations, and that it's been my dharma to bring those two together and express them in some way and share them, in the ways that we love.
And may I say something about this? Maybe it sounds strange that this Dakini and Mother Peace then together give birth also to my Yogini.
Yeah.
So they also are mothers of my Yogini. I could do this without this practice.
It's our lineage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and so you would like to pick up a card, and so we can end our conversation just with a message to the women and the world, and also in this particular moment.
The one I chose is one of the drawings that I made. It's the judgment card. And the judgment card is one of the few really abstract images in the Mother Peace deck. Most of the images are more, more figurative, more anthropomorphic, more personalized. But the judgment card overall encompasses the goddess in the world, and the loving kindness, the unconditional love coming from her heart in the form, in this case, of the 7 rays, and the violet ray being the one that is in the background here, and that where she's coming out of the violet ray. And the violet ray in esoteric magical tradition is considered to be the feminine ray. And we hope and believe that in some way that energy is coming into the world in this time because it is so desperately needed. And so the judgment card is a picture of that. The rays of the rainbow are coming from her heart, and they're sheltering the world. And our world needs sheltering at this time. And it's women emerging into leadership in the ways that you and I have been talking about that's going to make the difference. Either we're going to move into a world where women take the leadership, or we're not going to survive.
So, yes. So, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. So I think that we can. So this is a very. It has been a very rich conversation, and I really thank you very much, Vicki, to be part of my life. I have to say.
Yes.
And then also for your precious work around the world, and also so to be here. So I wish this conversation can help more women and can be there for the benefits of the women in the world to be with us.
We say, may all beings, may all the women experience the Dakini.
Yes.
Blessed be.
Blessed be. Jai Dakini, Jai Yogini. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.